Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. Once again, we're going into The Kingdom of Fear by Hunter S. Thompson. Hope everyone is enjoying everything and the videos that have been coming out. I try to vary up the order in which I drop them, so just kind of see what the algorithm and how the YouTube deals with it. So without further ado, let's get into this thing.
When I think of him now, I think of fast horses and cruel Japs and lying FBI agents.
Yeah. And in retrospect, from what we've listened to so far, that's not too bad of a memory.
There's no such thing as paranoia, he told me once. Even your worst fears will come true if you chase them long enough.
And I agree with that. You know, if you want something bad or think something's bad's gonna happen bad enough, it's gonna happen.
Beware, son. There is trouble lurking out there in that darkness, sure as hell. Wild beasts and cruel people, and some of them will pounce on your neck and try to tear your head off if you're not careful.
Yeah, and that's just getting, that's just kindergarten, first grade there.
It was a mean piece of wisdom to lay on a 10-year-old boy, but in retrospect, I think it was the right thing to say, and it definitely turned out to be true. I have wandered into that darkness many times in my life, and for many strange reasons that I still have trouble explaining. And I could tell you a whole butcher shop full of stories about the horrible savage beasts that lurk out there, most of them beyond the wildest imagination of a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah. The only thing is these beasts look like you and me.
Or even a 20 or 30-year-old boy, for that matter. Or even beyond the imagination of a teenage girl from Denver being dragged away from her family by a pack of diseased wolves. Nothing compared.
Yeah, that is always something to keep in the back of one's mind.
Compares to it. The terror of a moment like that rolls over you like a rush of hot scum in a sewer pipe. Here is a story I wrote for the Athenaeum Literary Association magazine and tried to insert into The Spectator when Porter Bibb was editor.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if that's a common thing that journalists do, write for one thing, then kind of switch it up a little bit to go in another publication.
He was a numbnuts creep in those days, but so what? We loved each other, and I was, after all, the art director. We put out a quality magazine and we printed whatever we liked, and we both had veto power, which was dangerous.
Yeah, when you have multiple veto powers, yeah, that does get... I imagine that can get awkward, weird, real quick.
Except for this one. No. This one never saw print until now, and God's mercy on you swine for reading it.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways Thompson was probably his worst own critic.
Society housewife exposed in child sex scandal. Bloody aftermath shocks East End neighborhood. I have not had the leisure to brood seriously on the nature and fate of true love in the 21st century, but that doesn't mean I don't care.
Yeah, as coarse or as callow as Thompson could come across. He actually, if you do research, he actually did a lot of charity work and a lot of other things.
Not at all. That kind of flotsam is never far from my mind. I am a child of the American century, and I feel a genetic commitment to understanding why it happened and why I take it so personally. Let me give you one example.
Yeah, I guess in a lot of ways Thompson is correct that the 20th century was the American century, and we're too early into the 21st century to understand or see who the 21st century is going to be for.
In the summer of my 15th year, the wife of a family friend bit me on the face and tore off some bleeding flaps of skin that would never grow back. The tissue failed to regenerate, as the medical doctors say, and ever since then my face has been noticeably crooked. The wound itself healed perfectly.
Yeah, I've often looked at pictures to see of Thompson to see. I've never been able to spot this injury that he talks about, but I have read many accounts that is an actual injury, not injury. Yeah, learn how to talk.
I was lucky to be attended to by the finest restorative surgeons in a 9-state region between Baltimore and St. Louis, from Chicago in the north to the Caribbean island of Grenada, 3,000 miles south.
Yeah, funny that he talks about Grenada for those of us that are old enough to remember the American incursion into Grenada.
I have never entirely recovered from that episode, and I have never understood how it happened. The woman who bit me refused to discuss it, at least not with me, and as far as I know, she never told her lascivious tale to any living person. It was, however, a towering scandal that haunted our peaceful neighborhood for many years.
Yeah, I imagine in a small town in Kentucky at that particular juncture in history, I imagine something like that would be a scandal for a while.
Massive speculation was rampant almost everywhere in the east end of Louisville, except in the local newspapers, which only made it hotter as truly unspeakable gossip. It was unacceptable and irresistible all at once.
Yeah, that's usually how gossip spread. That's something that is so crazy, but people want to get more of the crazy.
Oh, stand back, you churlish little suckfish. I have my own definitions of words like unacceptable and irresistible.
I think we all do, and when it comes down to it, I think we all have our own definitions, our own little convenient ways that we define things that make our lives easier.
Remember the slope of her perfect little breasts and the panties she never wore. I remember exactly how she smelled and how she laughed when I sucked her nipples down my throat. I was her pimply sex toy, and she was the love of my life.
And that's how it goes in those relationships sometimes. Youth.
I worshipped her desperate mouth and prayed at the shrine of her grasping pussy. Why she sunk her teeth into my face, I will never know.
Yeah, throes of passion marking her territory. No way of knowing.
Perhaps it was God's will, or the hex of some heinous devil. Rape in Cherokee Park.
Yeah, we go from an adulterous, pedophilic relationship to rape. Only in a Hunter S. Thompson book that will that happen.
I look back on my youth with great fondness, but I would not recommend it as a working model to others. I was lucky to survive it at all. In fact, I was hounded and stalked for most of my high school career by a cruel and perverted small-town probation.
That, for me, it wasn't a probation officer. It was a police officer, a law enforcement officer that I had beef with. I wonder what he's doing these days.
Officer who poisoned my much-admired social life and eventually put me in jail on the night of my class graduation.
Well, I didn't wind up in jail or anything. Couldn't ever prove anything, which either told people that I was the good little boy that I pretended to be, or I was just smart enough not to leave the evidence needed. It's up for you to decide.
Once Mr. Dotson came into my life, I was marked as a criminal. He was an officious creep with all sorts of hidden agendas, or not that hidden. And he hounded me all through high school. It was an embarrassment, and it criminalized me long before I ever got to marijuana.
And the thing is my last couple years of high schools when we had a police liaison officer my junior and senior year of high school, and it was me and that particular liaison officer that had a, let's just say, we'll say, a contemptuous relationship. I wonder if he's still working. There's no telling.
All kinds of people who had no reason to be in contact with the juvenile court were contacted by this swine, which accounted for a lot of my reputation. He was out of control, and people like that shouldn't get away with abusing their power.
But it's power that attracts people like that. That's just the insanity of it all. You have to have people in society with that kind of power, but the people that are going to be attracted to that power don't deserve that power. It's kind of an enigma.
Especially as I hadn't committed a crime. All we had wanted was some cigarettes. We ran out of cigarettes on the ride home from Cherokee Park. I was asleep in the back seat, passed out, or half passed out, and I remember thinking, cigarettes, cigarettes, cigarettes.
Yeah, I think, I don't think Hunter S. Thompson ever stopped smoking. I think he smoked, cigarettes all the way up to his death.
Max and Eric, or so I'll call them, were up front. Eric was driving, and I guess it was Max who said, "Well, let's see if these people have any." I might have thought of that too. Here are people, neckers, parked in the park at Necker's Knob or whatever. Why not ask for a cigarette? That was Max's logic anyway.
And I guess when you're in high school, that's, the prevailing logic.
So we pulled up beside them, which could have frightened some people, and Max got out and went over to a car with two couples in it and asked for cigarettes, and the driver said, "We don't have any." That seemed fair, but something else was said. The car was 7 feet away, and Max was a fairly violent bugger.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it.
The next thing I remember is him yelling, "All right, motherfucker, you give me some cigarettes or I'm gonna grab you out of there." Then he reached into the car and said, "I'm gonna jerk you out of here and beat the shit out of you and rape those girls back here."
Yeah, that is where you get in trouble with law enforcement, especially in this day and age.
And that's all it was. Eric was driving, so I had to get out of the back seat and go over and grab Max, saying, "Fuck this, we don't need any cigarettes." I meant we didn't need any fights. So I got back in the car and we drove off. That's all it was. But they got our license plate number and reported it.
And the thing is, this is a day before cell phones. This is a day where they had to make a committed effort to get a hold of law enforcement.
Then, you know, cops. A rape charge. God might forgive you, but I won't.
And yeah, it's kind of crazy. Things that happen in your life. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call that good here. So till next time, be a good human. Be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?